The ninjas in the legend of the Uchiha clan are not recorded in the genealogy Binocular Kaleidoscope writing will eyes that will never go blind. The kaleidoscope writes the wheel eye, but it can fully open the body and assist it almost massive chakras, unbeatable body techniques in the ninja world, capturing 9 tails alone, sealing them all and bringing them back to Yuzhibo. The wooden escape between the 1,000-handed pillars and the pupil power of Yuzhi Boban are not worth mentioning. In front of him the large cylinder would appeared in duplicate, with severe injuries to the spots and pillars. The shell tissue disappeared overnight. The Daguan Mu Tao style and Jin style arrived early, but Yuzhibo Li used the lesser-known Vajrayana. His true identity is about to be revealed. The author did not write well for the first time, please forgive me. Chapter 1. Yuzhi Bosuo. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Winter nights are always so cold and long, with dark clouds gathering together in the sky, like pouring pitch-black ink on a black curtain, condensing into blocks. Now it is still the Warring States period in the fire shadow, during a time of family turmoil and people struggling to make ends meet. Qianshou and Yuzhibo were the 2 strongest families at that time, and they were the purest and most complete families that inherited the bloodline of the 6 immortals. There was no hatred between families, and the battles between daimyos were not enough to rely solely on warriors and nurtured ninjas. Therefore, they began to hire the ninja family to help, engaging in repeated confrontations. Many of the ninjas' relatives, friends, and brothers died at the hands of each other, and over time, they would forget the original culprit and instead shift their hatred towards the opposing families. Fire Country, Frost Flower City. This is the busiest city in the Fire Country and also the capital of the Fire Country. At this time, the Frost Flower City is brightly lit and bustling with music and dance, reminiscent of a peaceful and prosperous era and a peaceful country. But the fact is exactly the opposite. At this time, it is a time of ninja struggle, amidst the ups and downs of a chaotic world. The most eye-catching and largest building in the middle is the Daming Mansion. Daming used the money squeezed from the people to build an exquisite and unparalleled palace. From a distance, the golden light at the top flows and shines brightly. Daming lazily lay on his seat, holding a document in his hand, and lazily said, "So, you're not doing it anymore." I saw a man standing below the stage, wearing a black cloak, black boots, and a black tight-fitting suit inside. Upon closer inspection, the facial features were naturally delicate, with smooth and delicate skin. The silver long hair was unadorned and casually draped behind the head. The clearly defined face seemed to have been carved by the gods themselves, and the pupils were light gray, with 2 embroidered eyebrows slightly furrowed. Although standing under the stage, the momentum is completely equal to that of the daimyo on stage. Anyway, since you have made contributions to intelligence research for many years, I won't make it difficult for you. Daming sat up and closed the document in his hand. You go. Thank you very much. The man didn't want to stay for a moment and turned around to leave. Wait. Daming stopped him, his face full of fat, making the onlookers nauseous. Are you really leaving? The man nodded expressionlessly and said, Yes, the originally scheduled deadline has come. My friendship with your father has been settled, and from now on, we have no further involvement. Daming smiled and said, That's nature. It's hard to tell whether it's sad or happy. The man walked out of the hall without looking back and headed straight towards the distance. The daimyo put away his smile and gave a glance to the nearby guard, who instantly understood. Hands on. More than 20 black-clad people suddenly rushed out of the entrance of the main hall, holding ninja swords and ninja tools, and some holding long knives. The man's gaze swept over the group of people and turned to look at daimyo. There was still no expression on his calm face. Dongfangzhua. The daimyo looked at him with a smile on his face. You know so many secrets, how could you possibly leave alive? As long as you die, no one knows about those things. I'll sit firmly in this position. The man didn't move, just looked at daimyo. Feng, you're still too naive. So I'll give you the last lesson. The black cloak slipped off, revealing the black bodysuit inside. The light gray color dissipates, revealing the crimson Sharingan, on which the pattern of a pentagram appears. Humph. The Kaleidoscope will knows you're not a good person. Let's go together. Suo watched the group of ninjas charging towards him without any waves, and his heart had already declared their death. The ninja at the forefront had already arrived, with a sharp long sword in his hand facing him. Suo suddenly exerted force, grabbing his wrist with his left hand and mercilessly hitting his left elbow joint with his right elbow. Ah! A mournful scream echoed through the main hall, the bones completely broken, the broken bones piercing through flesh and blood, and a hard and wide opening was made from the elbow, bleeding profusely. The ninjas were not frightened by their companion's pitiful appearance and continued to charge forward. Stubborn. Suo shook his hand to block Ku Wu, who was blocking his waist, and turned around to hit the opponent's chin with his elbow. The other party had no chance to make a sound before returning to the west. With a sharp thrust from the long sword, Suo took advantage of the situation and turned around to avoid the thrust. He used his feet as a support to push the ground, with his waist and abdomen carrying an elbow, and launched a domineering attack on the opponent's center. The opponent was unprepared, spat out a mouthful of old blood, flew backwards, and crashed straight into the door made of golden nanmu, opening a big hole in the door. Indeed, you still have a backup. Daming stood up and said coldly, "Today, you will be buried here, as I said." Suo sneered and said, "It's not certain who will die." Suo crossed his hands and pushed the enemy away with a lunge and elbow, then lifted his leg and kicked the ninja who wanted to sneak attack behind him away. The back lifting leg, also known as the Mandarin duck leg, is a unique move of the Northern Martial Arts School in China. Using the knee joint as the axis, drive the foot with the lower leg and kick backwards and upwards, lifting the toe and exerting force on the heel. Suo dodged the attack of the long sword, constantly dodging and getting closer, using the 8 extremes to wrap around the opponent's arm. Baji Quan has 3 entanglements. Large entanglement around the arm, small entanglement around the wrist, and double entanglement around the body. In actual combat, if entangled by the 8 extremes fist, one can basically declare death. The 8 extremes fist emphasizes hitting in the arms. After being entangled, the opponent is basically at a fixed distance and cannot move a single hand. There are countless ways to kill the opponent, which is truly a deadly move. With a click, the meridians of the arm were forcibly displaced, and then the 2 ninjas were easily knocked down by swinging their fists left and right. At this moment, there are still more than 10 ninjas left on the field. Suo Yu is becoming more and more brave in battle, as powerful as thunder and as fierce as a swift bow. Dozens of ninjas appeared somewhat disheartened when faced with Sasa. "Is this the ninja you raised? It's really a wine and rice bag," Suo mocked. "That's right, these people are the same as you. It's not strange for you to support them." As the words fell, 2 more ninjas lay unconscious on the ground. Death. The left swing hit. Suo Chu's arm blocked the opponent's forearm, and the soles of his feet unknowingly kicked towards the opponent's frontal bone. A dull sound came, followed by a bone-wrenching scream. Rubbing and kicking is the basic footwork of the 8 extremes fist, which is very covert and has killing power. After kicking the opponent's frontal bone, it usually causes them to lose their mobility. Daming couldn't help but burst out in a cold sweat. The person in front of him could match more than 20 ninjas with just physical skills. How powerful. Turn around and want to escape. Shoo. A bitter and unappealing light flashed in front of Daimyo, who was gasping for breath in shock. He turned his head and saw that all 20 ninjas had been taken care of, each spitting blood and falling to the ground. With supreme authority, Zodi walked slowly with a long knife he had picked up from the ground. Daimyo tried to escape with both hands and feet, but he was horrified to find that he couldn't escape. That plump face was filled with fear and unwillingness, which made people feel nauseous. Dong! Fangzhua. You. Dare. The daimyo's voice trembled. I am the daimyo of the fire. Kingdom. Name, you. You cannot kill me. With a disdainful sneer, Zhua said, your father is completely different from you. He is a person who cherishes the world, capable of bending and stretching, and decisive in killing. But you are different. As soon as you learn to walk, you want to run, and you don't know how much you weigh. You are just a waste. No, yes, I have. Before he could finish speaking, his throat was cut open, and warm crimson liquid spurted out. Zhuo leaned aside to prevent the dirty liquid from splashing onto him. Humph. Zhuo snorted, a lowly person. Without looking back, he left the Daming mansion and disappeared into the vast night. Chapter 2. Battlefield Friendship. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The night still shrouded the earth, and the land of the Uchiha tribe was quiet. Hey, when do you think this battle will be finished? Asked one of the younger ones. The older ninja pondered, I don't know how long it will take to fight. It may be finished soon, or it may take a long time. After speaking these words, the elderly pet touched the head of the young ninja and said, Huanu, this war has been fought for many years and cannot be completed in a short while. So, you should practice ninjutsu well and protect your parents and people in the future. I will do it. Huanu smiled sweetly. There's no need to fight for a long time, the war will end in a few more years, said the man's voice from the bushes. This made Huanua and the ninja turn their heads in an instant, their sharp blades unsheathed. The young fire core even opened the Sharingan, and two hooked jade appeared on the crimson eyeballs. Black butterflies keep flying over, hidden in the night. If you don't turn on the Sharingan, you won't be able to see them. The sky was filled with black butterflies gradually converging into a figure, and the visitor was seen wearing a black cloak. Due to the darkness, his face could not be clearly seen, and only his snow-white silver hair could be seen. Zhuo looked at the two people who were facing great enemies and couldn't help but chuckle lightly. Why am I so terrifying? As Zhou slowly approached, he also saw his face clearly. A pair of beautiful Danfang eyes with light gray pupils. The face in the shadow became more distinct due to the light, and the entire face looked more three-dimensional. His exquisite facial features and fair skin make him even more attractive than many girls, only his tall body and heroic face can distinguish him from a man. Huanu was mesmerized and thought to himself, does such a beautiful man really exist in this world? I completely forgot that he was staring directly at Zhuo. Zhuo felt uncomfortable being stared at like this and coughed twice in dissatisfaction, pulling the core back to reality. Hey! Why are you so impolite, kid? Zhuo awkwardly said, take me to see your clan leader. Zhuo knocked on Hua's head. If possible, he really wanted to pry his head open and see what structure was inside. You don't need to see me, I'm right here. A barrier suddenly appeared between Zhuo and Hua. The visitor is dressed in a dark robe with a sword fastened around their waist. His thick and long hair covered his right eye. Even though he only showed half of his face, it still didn't make others feel ugly. He only felt that he was domineering and exuded a cool and handsome demeanor. It's really difficult to see you. Yuzhibo. Yuzhibo smiled. If there's anything, don't go to the Three Treasures Hall. If there's anything, just say it, said Yuzhi Boban coldly. Can't I come if I have nothing to do? Zhuo said, it seems like I'm not a member of Uchiha anymore. Stop and stop. Ban interrupted Zhuo's words, if there's anything else, come inside first. It's a bit inconvenient to talk outside. Zhuoban sat in the private room, looking out at the pedestrians coming and going, and sighed with emotion, when I left, it was far less bustling than it is now. It seems that you managed it well. That's for sure. It's been over 10 years since you left, and time has passed so quickly. Ban leaned back in his seat. Ban's thoughts rolled back more than a decade ago, when he was only 20 years old. His father, Uchiha Hiradajima, has 3 children, 2 males and 1 female. The original work did not mention whether Ban had any other siblings, here referred to as a Kwang. As the largest of them, Ban took on the responsibility of taking care of his younger siblings early on. Ben still remembers it to this day. It was a cloudy and rainy day. "Nissan, I'm so hungry, I want to eat." At that time, Quan Na was still a child, only 15 years old. "Eat and eat, you know how to eat." The girl beside her fiercely tapped Quan Na's head. Quan Na cried out in pain, "Pain, pain, One-san. Nissan, she's bullying me." "Okay, Cheong, you stay here and watch my younger brother. I'll find some food to eat," said Ban, pointing to the big tree next to him. "You guys rest here, I'll be back soon." "Okay." "Nissan," Joan said, "Nissan, go and get back quickly." By the time Ban returned holding a pile of wild fruits, the big tree had disappeared without a trace, and Kwana and Cheong seemed to disappear out of thin air. Ban stood there dumbfounded. "Kwana! Joan! Where are you?" shouted Bana loudly. The empty forest echoed only the sound of spots, and the silence was terrifying. The pattern of the 3 hooked jade in the eyes of the spot appears, and the power of the writing will eye is fully opened. I saw the blue chakra attached to the ground, which belonged to Joan. The blue chakra twisted and led deep into the forest. Ban ran straight along the winding blue chakra. As we walked forward, many chakras intertwined, with obvious signs of combat, and there were faint mottled bloodstains on the ground. For some reason, an inexplicable fear rose from within Ban's heart. No, definitely not. Ban struggled to deny his inner thoughts and shook his head, wanting to throw away this strange idea. However, years of battlefield experience told him that Kwana may have encountered an unexpected situation. Hurry up even faster." Ban ran at full speed, jumping and weaving through the trees, so fast that he could only see a faint shadow clearly. Passing through this forest, one arrived at a slightly wider plain. Ban looked up and saw dozens of thousand-handed ninjas gathered in a circle, surrounded by Cheong and Kwana, as well as a stranger from the Uchiha tribe. Cheong painfully covered her stomach, with a deep hole on it that couldn't stop oozing blood. Kwana didn't have much to do, just Chakra was exhausted and lying on the ground. Noticing the arrival of an unexpected guest, the 1,000 armed ninjas turned their heads one after another. The leader gave a glance to the ninja next to him. The ninja instantly understood. You, and 10 of you, go deal with that Uchiha, and the rest, come with me to deal with this." In an instant, arrangements were made, and 30 or 40 ninjas collectively charged towards Ban. "Cheong, hold on, wait for me." Ban's anger had reached its peak. "You all die for me." He raised his hand and took out the Wu seal fire escape. Extinguish the great fire. Flames swept across the sky and ground, burning all the trees along the path, forming a sea of flames. "Hurry up. Water run ninjutsu," the ninja shouted. The neat and uniform printing technique creates water escape. Water formation wall. The huge water wall collided with the sea of fire, presenting a situation of competing with each other. Satoru is not afraid of 10,000-handed ninjas at all. "Humph. I'm still being looked down upon," Swa sneered. "So, let's get started." The pattern in his eyes moved rapidly, and Sangoyu floated on top of it. Swa took the lead in challenging and quickly moved in front of a ninja, striking his face with a right swing punch. So fast. Before everyone could react, the ninja had already been thrown backwards for tens of meters, only to stop when it hit a rock and fell to the ground with no sound. It's not over yet. It was another flying kick that hit the chest of the charging ninja, and the powerful force directly broke 2 ribs, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Damn it. Let's all go up together. Humph, a bunch of annoying trash. Let's play with you. Dozens of thousand-handed ninjas surrounded Sasa, and Sasa calmly dodged their attacks. The attacks of dozens of thousand-handed ninjas did not harm Sasa at all. A kuwafei with a cold light came, and a detonating symbol was tied with a thin string at the back. Zwa took advantage of the situation, took Kuwu, pulled off the detonating talisman, turned around to avoid chopping, and attached the detonating talisman to the armor of 1,000 armed ninja. Then, he turned around and kicked sideways into the crowd, using his strength to swing Kuwu and accurately hit the neck of the 1,000 armed ninja behind him. Bang! A huge explosion sounded. Damn it, how could it be so strong, said the leading ninja. Looking sideways at the battlefield on the other side of Ban, the battlefield on Ban's side has also been settled, with more than 10 corpses lying on the ground. Retreat! Retreat! The thousand-handed ninjas fled in embarrassment, and Ban wanted to continue his pursuit when his assistant stopped him. What are you doing? Banu said, I'm going to kill this group of people. Hello, are you ignoring your sister? Her current situation is not very good. Ban Wenyen turned his head and looked around. Xiong's abdomen was pierced by a knife, and blood gushed out, staining her deep black robe red. Joan, how are you? Ban quickly ran to Joan. It hurts so much, I might be dying. Xiong's face turned pale, and blood scabbed on Xiong's beautiful face, solidifying into blood clots. What nonsense! You won't die. Banhu said recklessly, pulling off his own clothes and dressing Xiong's wound. Joan, hold on. Don't sleep. Once you sleep, you can't get up again. Ban shook Joan desperately. Ounson. Chuanai grabbed Joan's hand. Joan's body temperature became cold, her lips twitched slightly, and she wanted to say something. Ban and Kwana were already in tears and leaned over. I. Before she could finish speaking, Xiong fell into Ban's arms. Xiong. Wake up, wake up. Ban's eyes flickered with a new pattern. Ban felt a new strength and murmured, why, even though someone always makes sacrifices, why would it be her? When he broke away from the pillar, he believed that the war would soon come to an end. During the Warring States period, human life was like grass, and only by becoming stronger could one be qualified to survive. Ban wanted to change this cruel world, and Zhu Jian also wanted to, so the two became friends. Even if Chiba Buddha and Uchiha Hirata intervened, they did not give up their initial dreams. Now that his only sister has died, under the sword of the thousand-handed clan, Ban realized how ridiculous his past thoughts were. Well. Don't worry and be sad yet, she's not dead. Zwa interrupted Ban's memories. Ban didn't believe it and used his fingers to probe Tan Xiong's breath, but surprisingly, there was still a slight hot breeze. Ban felt embarrassed and just now he was feeling sad. But on second thought, it seemed like it wasn't a loss. I bought a pair of kaleidoscopes for free, not a loss, but a profit from blood. Chapter 3. I'm not, don't talk nonsense. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zwa and Ban sat by the campfire, and Joan's abdominal wound had mostly healed, with Quan Na taking care of her. Ban and Zwa sat together. Oh, here you are. Zwa handed over the freshly grilled fish. Ban hesitated for a moment and reached out his hand but didn't answer. Seeing his reaction, Zwa only felt amused and said, What? Afraid of me poisoning? Ban remained silent. Hey. You don't really think I poisoned inside, do you? Zwa was a bit puzzled. After hesitating for a moment, Ban still took the grilled fish. Ban looked at Quan Nai and Joan lying in Quan Nai's arms and sighed, I didn't expect the strong members of the Uchiha family to also know how to treat ninjutsu. I'm just slightly proficient, replied Zwa Hui, handing the grilled fish to Quan Na. By the way, I haven't asked your name yet. Yuzhi Bosuo. Yuzhi Bosuo. I remember this person doesn't seem to be in the genealogy, right? Ban instantly became alert and asked in confusion. Nothing is normal. I have been staying in Daming Prefecture since I was born, and have never stayed in the Uchiha clan. It would be strange if my name were there. Alright, rest early, and I'll watch for you. Suo patted his back and stood up. I have informed the Uchiha clan that I believe they will come soon. So, goodbye by chance. Suo's body began to dissipate, turning into a white butterfly flying into the air. Yuzhibo, Suo. Ban looked at the sky and murmured, what a strange person. Ban stopped recalling and smiled at Suo. Do you still have to leave after returning this time? Suo lazily leaned back on the chair and said, I might really not be leaving this time. Won't leave. Why? Suo turned his head and looked out the window. Because of me, I want to leave my footprints in this world, find the direction of my heart. That's what you call bondage. Suo murmured to himself, I won't let that future happen again. I'm not anyone's accessory, nor am I a puppet. It was only half a day since the return of the Suo clan, when they were constantly pulled by zebras to the conference room. Stop and stop, I can walk on my own. Suo broke free from the spot's hand. I just came back, so you pulled me here. I don't even let anyone rest. Oh my. The situation is urgent. Special circumstances require special treatment. Ban said, opening the door and pushing Suo in. The conference room of Uchiha was full, and almost the entire core of the Uchiha clan had arrived. Everyone sat quietly. Ban sat in the front and middle position, coughing lightly twice. So now, let's start the meeting. Let me introduce to you, this is Yuzhibo Suo, a returning member of our Yuzhibo family. Suo looked around and saw the figures of Kwana and Cheong in the crowd. He politely nodded and said hello. The whispers came from the conference room, and everyone was discussing such an unwelcome guest. One of the left-wing Uchiha people stood up and said, Mr. Ban, how could such an unknown person bring him into such a meeting? What if he were a spy sent by another hostile force? The whispers grew louder and louder, and Ban looked around at the people present, seeing suspicion and disdain on their faces. He's not a spy. On the contrary, he's a spy of the Uchiha clan wandering in the ninja realm, which is absolutely true. So, how can the clan chief prove that he is not a spy? If not, that would be best. I did this for the sake of Uchiha's stability, Lord Ban. Ban nodded slightly to show understanding. Because he saved Kwana and Joan's lives. As soon as these words were spoken, the whole room erupted in an uproar, and discussions continued incessantly. Everyone was deeply curious about this mysterious fellow countryman. Having saved the younger brother and sister of Uchiha, this is enough to be a ticket to enter the management team. Those elders feel wary of this person and are afraid that he will threaten their own status. But Suo seemed to have no feelings for these things, still sitting as if they were not discussing him, but someone else. Alright, that's all for today's meeting. We will hold a plenary meeting tomorrow to discuss the combat plan against the Feathered Clan. Let's end the meeting. Suo stood up and was about to leave, so Ban quickly pressed him onto his seat. Is this what you said is important? Suo dissatisfied. Banyan saw Suo angry and quickly comforted him, okay, don't be angry, anger will make you old. Humph. Suo lightly snorted. Due to not experiencing such tragic events as in the original work, Ban's personality is far from the same as in the original work. Forgive you first this time. Cheong and Chuanai also came over, and Chuanai ran over as soon as he saw Suo. Brother Suo. Chuanai shouted and ran to Suo's face. Suo touched his head and said, long time no see. It's grown so big. By the way, let me introduce you. Ban waved towards the door. I saw a woman standing at the door, her long purple hair reaching her waist, scattered like a waterfall behind her head. This is Uchiha Yuri, my cousin. Ban held Yuri's hand. This is Yuzhi Bosuo, get to know him. Zhili extended his left hand to Zwa and said, when we first met, my name is Yuzhibo Zhili. Yuzhi Bosuo. Zwa extended his left hand to Zhili as well. Alright, there's nothing I can do, so I'll go back first. If you need anything, come find me. Zwa left this sentence and ran away quickly. Hey, this guy. Time soon arrived at night. After taking a shower at the hotel, Zwa changed into a white bathrobe and lay in bed, looking at the ceiling. What are you pondering? At this moment, Zwa did not expect that a huge danger was approaching him. A few minutes ago, Ban and Chuanai parted ways with the drunken Kiri outside the wine house. At first, Ban wanted to take Kiri home, but Kiri insisted that he was okay. After a few minutes of arguing, Ban eventually compromised. Do you think it's dangerous for Zhili to get drunk? Ban worried. Quan Nai couldn't help but laugh and said, with Zhili's strength, it's good that she doesn't cause danger to others. Ban hesitated for a moment, wanting to refute but unable to do so. Upon careful consideration, it seemed like that was indeed the case. Due to being single and lazy to do household chores, Zhili rented a room in the hotel for a long time. And the lower floor of this room happens to be Zwa's room. In this way, the drunken Zhili accidentally walked to the door of Zwa's room. Zhili took out the key and forcefully inserted it into the keyhole. After several attempts, it couldn't be inserted, and anger surged in his heart. Zwa heard the commotion at the door and wondered who came to visit so late. Can it be a spot? Why did he come over? Why didn't he knock on the door when he came in? But he still shouted loudly, who? Bang! With a loud bang, the poor wooden door was split in half, shocking Zwa for 100 years. Drunk Zhili stood at the door, walking unsteadily inside. Zwa saw Zhili walking unsteadily and saw at a glance that she was drunk. He quickly went over to help. Zhili also disregarded the situation and threw himself directly into Sasa's arms. Zou's movements froze, his skin was already very white, even whiter than most women. At this moment, the fair skin began to show a faint pink color. As a steel straight man of the Uchiha clan, Zwa has lived for 30 years and has not even touched a woman, not even physically. Now a drunken woman pounced on her arms, leaving her at a loss. Zwa's face became increasingly pink, and his hands trembled as he supported Zhili's back and laid it flat on the bed. We need to find a way to get rid of her. This is now Zwa's first thought in his heart. I saw a person standing at the door, dumbfounded and dumbfounded. Who else could it be, with black hair and eyes that were not Chuanai's? He was still holding a black coat in his hand. I don't know anything. I didn't see anything. Quan Nai quickly argued. Wait a moment, listen to me explain. I'm not, don't talk nonsense. Zwa's series of pale and powerless rebuttals seemed to further reinforce Quan Nai's view. And, don't talk nonsense seems to be warning yourself. That's a fact, isn't it? Well, I won't disturb you, I'm leaving. Quan Na threw down her coat and ran away as if flying. It's not what you think, wait. Zolian quickly chased after him, but Chuanai had already disappeared. Office of Yuzhibo clan chief, what you said is true. Ban said incredulously. It's absolutely true, I saw it with my own eyes. Chuanai said excitedly, brother Zwa and sister Zhili are together. This kid, when did it happen? Even I don't know, Ban Zon exclaimed. A few days ago, he was still planning a marriage for this cheap cousin, and he was also desperate for Zhili's vision. He was not satisfied with Zhili's decision to be single for a lifetime. Now it seems that there is someone in my heart. Ban couldn't help but examine Zwa's conditions for Zhili. A person who is handsome, strong in strength, and intelligent in mind, but lacks the love of family members. From this perspective, Swa is a perfect candidate who excels in all aspects. I just don't know that aspect. Ban shook his head desperately, throwing away his strange idea. Cough. Ban coughed lightly twice. That's good, let them develop freely. Quan Na smiled mischievously and quietly leaned over to Ban Er, whispering a few words. That's amazing. It's amazing. It's my blessing to have a younger brother like you. Ban Yi patted the table, then that settled. Chapter 4. Why are we all looking at each other? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The sky is gradually brightening, and a red sun rises from the east. At this time, it is early autumn and the temperature is gradually decreasing. Zhili got up from his bed in a daze, feeling a burning pain in his hands and muscle soreness all over his body. Hey, next time I still can't drink, drinking can cause trouble. Zhili muttered. Tell me what's wrong with myself. I don't remember anything that happened last night. Maybe I drank alcohol and got fragmented. I thought to myself. I was about to go out when I changed into a dark gray robe and ran into Zoe, who stayed up all night last night. Good morning. Zhili politely greeted. You too. Zoichi felt extremely embarrassed when he saw Yuri and remembered what happened last night. Do you also want to attend the meeting? Zhili asked, but then felt unnecessary. As a high-end fighter of the Uchiha clan, who else would attend if he didn't attend the meeting? Yes, Zwa desperately wanted to end the conversation and quickly slipped away. Now his mind was filled with the image of last night's Zhili punching open the door, and the thought of this made his scalp tingle. Let's go together, I happen to be going too. Zhili said. Things started to develop in a wrong direction, and Zwa felt a headache about it. Directly refusing seems impolite. What is a good reason to politely refuse? No need, I'll go alone. Are there any differences between you walking alone and walking with me? Zhili wondered. Zwa also doesn't know how to evade, after all, others have said so, it would be impolite to refuse again. Okay. Zwa answered with difficulty. Zhili and Zwa walked side by side on the road to the Uchiha conference room, and wherever they passed, pedestrians were discussing them along the way. I heard that Lord Zhili has an affair with this white-haired man. Really? When did it happen? Just last night, Lord Chuanai personally said it. Whether or not to say it, Lord Zhili is really beautiful, and the man next to her is also quite good looking. He looks quite compatible like this. Listening to the voices of people around him, Zwa only felt dizzy and his heart beating faster. It was really uncomfortable to be discussed behind him. Now he feels a bit regretful coming out with Zhili. If God could give him another chance, he would definitely refuse mercilessly. Zwa shouted in his heart, Goddamn Uchiha Kwana, I must shatter your body into pieces. Zhili was a bit curious, and the people on the way were all discussing. At first, she didn't pay much attention and was still guessing what they were discussing. It wasn't until later that she realized that the discussion seemed to be about herself and the person next to her. Zhili rubbed his elbow against Zwa, why are they all looking at us? Zwa lightly bit his lips, trying to restrain his anger. A hint of crimson rose on that handsome face. The people of the Uchiha clan all look unisex. It's not that men are feminine, but rather too beautiful. They dress up a bit and keep long hair so much so that it's difficult to distinguish between male and female. Zwo was also one of them, with a head of snow. White silver hair naturally draped behind his head, and his pupils were just a light gray color. It was only his slender face with clear lines and his tall figure of 1.82 meters that people could tell he was a man. Finally, I managed to make it through this journey, so I took a deep breath. Dong dong. 3 knocking sounds sounded at the door. Please come in. Ban said. Zwa gently pushed open the door and saw that the conference room was already filled with people. Glancing through the crowd, I quickly found Kwana and Cheong in the crowd. Quan Nai felt guilty and awkwardly scratched the back of his head. Zuo walked straight towards an empty seat and sat down. Zhili also arrived at the conference room, scanned the surroundings, and then sat next to Zuo. Zuo inwardly shouted, "Don't come over. Do you still think there aren't enough rumors?" On the surface, the waves were calm, but when Yuri sat down next to Sasa, the crowd began to stir again, and the focus of the whole audience was on Sasa Yuri. Zhili looked around and found that everyone in the room was watching them, including Quan Na, who was smiling with his mouth covered, Qiong, who seemed to be watching a play, and Huanyu, who didn't mind eating melons. "Oh, why are you all looking at us?" Zhili asked Zuo. Zuo's face blushed as if it was about to bleed, and he couldn't even lift his head. He held the brush tightly in his hand, as if with immense force he was about to break it. "My aunt. Can you calm down for a while?" Zuo felt restless and anxious, just wanting to leave this council chamber quickly. Zuo has lived his whole life, and the first time he died in society was this feeling. If possible, he wants to escape Uchiha. Even if the governance was too slow, she should have noticed something at this moment. "Lie down." Zhili cursed inwardly. They couldn't have misunderstood, could they? After a moment of reflection, it seemed that she had not experienced anything strange with Zuo herself. No. Zhili vaguely guessed the answer. It happened last night, right? Zuo didn't dare to look up at anyone, so he had to pretend to be writing to avoid awkward looks. The more he did this, in their eyes, it was like being guilty of a thief, which further confirmed their speculation. "So, Lord Zhili, there's something to do with Zuo." "Right. Ahem." Ban coughed twice, shifting the focus of the audience to avoid another disaster for Rangzuo. "The troops are divided into 4 routes, with the first and second routes attacking the north side of the Yui tribe as the main force." Ban continued his tactics, pointing to the path on the sand table. "The third and fourth teams are supporting forces, reaching the outskirts of Yui as supplementary forces. Next, I want to talk about the most important thing. Team allocation. Captain of the first team, Yuzhi Boban. The captain of the second team is jointly appointed by Yuzhibo Chuannai and Yuzhibo Qiong. Captain of the third and fourth teams, Yuzhi Bojili, Yuzhi Bosuo." Objections came from the crowd, making the audience restless. Ban is different from all the Uchiha clan chiefs in the past. Although Tian Dao is also rigid and independent, he still listens to the opinions of the elders within the Uchiha clan, while Ban does not listen and completely disregards those opinions. Perhaps it was his absolute strength that gave him the capital of confidence. "The day after tomorrow, we will take action in the afternoon." "Alright, let's break up." Ban threw his baton onto the stage and quickly left the council chamber. Quan Na walked lightly to Zuo's side and patted his shoulder. "Zuo brother. Zuo brother." Zuo still frowned and looked at Quan Na with an unhappy expression. Quan Na also knew that she had caused trouble and looked at Zuo with guilt. "Haha." Chuannai chuckled slightly. "Well. I didn't mean to." "This." Zuo's brow furrowed even tighter, staring fixedly at Quan Na's face. Quan Na's appearance is quite outstanding in Uchiha. At the age of 20, she still has a baby fat on her face that has not faded. Her watery black eyes seem to have a hint of mist inside, and she looks apologetically at Zuo. "No matter who you are, you can't get angry at this face." Zuo's anger has dissipated by half. He sighed, shook his head. "Forget it, I'll forgive you this time." Quan Nai smiled and said, "Thank you, Brother Zuo. I'll leave first." Let's go." Zuo waved his hand and urged Quan Na. He doesn't want to see Quan Na's face at all now. How could a man gossip so much? There were only 2 people left in the vast council hall, Zuo and Zhili. Zuo felt uncomfortable and got up to leave. "Wait a minute, I have something to ask you." Yuri grabbed Sasa's wrist and said, Sit down, sit down. I'm asking you, what exactly happened last night? Zhili stared straight at Suo, his handsome face suddenly turning red. That. Nothing. Nothing. Suo scratched his head, his eyes flickering. He didn't dare to look at Zhili. He is afraid that when he sees her, he will think of last night's incident. Look at me, say. Zhili gradually became impatient and shouted loudly. Suo was startled by the sudden cry and had to look up at Zhili. Zhili is an outstanding young woman of the Uchiha clan, and only this type of woman can break free from the rules and regulations of feudal Japanese women. Purple long hair, without any care, freely drooped down to the waist. Her large black eyes seemed to be shrouded in smoke, bright and clear. At this time, Zhili had not yet created the beauty of Izanami, and her eyes were not blind. Her fair skin and extremely beautiful features make her look as beautiful as a fairy. Suo suddenly felt that looking at Zhili like this was very impolite. He tried to suppress his emotions and slowly spoke, "Do you really want me to say that?" Zhili nodded. Suo almost spoke with his head lowered throughout, his originally fair face dyed red, like a ripe tomato. Zhili tightly pursed her lips, but couldn't tell what she was thinking. The two of them sat silently in front of each other. "Forget it, I won't blame you this time." Yuri took a long time to suppress this sentence. Suo felt speechless. Why did she come to forgive me for her mistake? "See you in the afternoon," Zhili said coldly as a farewell. Suo nodded and responded the same way. Chapter 5. Between Thousand-Handed Pillars and Between Gates. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ban casually found a restaurant to eat, but with some personal matters, he didn't come with him. Now, fully armed ninjas can be seen everywhere, and many restaurants on the road have closed, only this one is open. It's really rare to encounter a war right after returning. Ban lifted a corner of the curtain and surveyed the scenery below. For some reason, Ban thought of that person again, the face that was not handsome but full of righteousness between his eyebrows, and thought of his initial ideal. "What are you doing now, between the pillars?" Ban looked up at the window. "Ah Chio. I sneezed and sniffed in the pillar of the gambling house. It's getting colder and colder." "You're right, Fei Jian." Next to the pillar stood a man wearing blue armor, a metal forehead protector, and a face painted with 3 iconic red paints. His deep red blood eyes stared at the pillar, his sword eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his silver hair stood out in the crowd. "Yes, yes." Fei Jian impatiently said, "Let's finish playing, let's go back." Regarding his brother's addiction to gambling, Fei Jian expressed that he couldn't understand, just guessing the size, what's fun about it? If we let him continue playing, his entire family will be ruined. Fei Jian complained discontentedly, coming to the casino just after completing the mission. Isn't this a disguised waste of time? If it weren't for his father asking him to keep an eye on his older brother, he wouldn't have come to such a haunted place. Zhu Jian didn't listen to Fei Jian's complaints because the gambling game had already begun. Come on, buy it off, buy it off. Bet big and bet small." Zhu Jian looked excitedly at the dice on the gambling table. Bet big. The dice were still spinning, and the eyes between the pillars were like flames, staring straight at the dice with words in their mouths. Big, big, big. As the dice land, the numbers on top appear. 1, 1, 2, which are small. Oh my. Zhu Jian sighed deeply. Come again, come again. Fei Jian didn't want to watch Zhu Jian gamble anymore, and he himself was not interested in these things. Looking around, the entire casino was magnificent and grand, gathering gamblers from all over the world. Some even sold children and women just to move back to the casino. Upon seeing this scene, Fei Jian was filled with mixed emotions. As he turned his head to look at Zhu Jian, he instantly felt that his elder brother was quite good. As expected, Zhu Jian's gambling skills were as bad as his granddaughter Gangshuo's. He lost all of them in just 5 innings, and all the mission rewards were included. How could that be? Zhu Jian lay on the gambling table, complaining unwillingly. There's a 50% chance, why didn't we win at once? Anigia, let's go. Fei Jian used his hand to drag between the pillars, but they were strong and didn't drag. Fei Jian, lend me some more money. Believe me, I will definitely win it back. Zhu Jian joked, just a little. Fei Jian looked at his elder brother with a black line on his face. He was clearly born to a father and had a huge difference in intelligence. I'm leaving, but I can't win while playing. No way. Lend me a little more. I will win. Zhu Jian tightly grasped the edge of the gambling table with both hands, and it was Wang Ba who ate the weight. Determined not to leave. Anigia. Fei Jian couldn't bear it anymore and shouted loudly. This sound was too loud, instantly gathering the attention of all the gamblers. Zhu Jian was also frightened by this sound and let go of his hand clutching the table. Looking around the room, the cold gaze swept over everyone present, dissuading everyone who wanted to stop, including the staff. Let's go home. Yoshimoto was really angry, pulling on the collar of his shirt and taking it out. Yoshimoto didn't dare to resist and could only reluctantly leave. Before leaving, he even gave the casino owner a smile as compensation. Sorry. I'll come play again next time. Fei Jian turned his head, his blood-red eyes staring coldly at the boss. The casino owner was instantly frightened, and a fine cold sweat broke out on his forehead, swallowing what he had originally intended to say. Ah. Come again next time, come again next time. Finally, only a few words were uttered. Fei Jian grabbed the collar of Zhu Jian's clothes with one hand and scolded him, still playing. Aren't we here to do business? Scratching his head between the pillars, he looked bewildered and said, What's up? You didn't tell me anything. Fei Jian really wanted to give him a few words, but he had already explained it several times before departure, but still didn't know. With a strong kick on the buttocks between the pillars, he felt a lot of pain and roared, Are you really listening to me? Zhu Jian looked at the raging door and felt a wave of fear in his heart. Approaching the door as if pleasing. A head of silver hair in the doorway seemed to stand up, like a furry cat. All right, don't be angry. Zhu Jian said as he helped Fei Jian press down his hair, but it always couldn't be pressed down and started sucking again. Fei Jian didn't want to take care of his elder brother at all and walked forward on his own. By the way, Fei Jian, where are we going? Zhu Jian ran along and followed Fei Jian. Go to Daming Mansion, said Fei Jian coldly. What are you going to do? Ah. Fei Jian only felt a surge of blood and energy, restraining the urge to beat up Zhu Jian again and not talking to him at all. When Fei Jian is particularly angry, he won't talk to anyone, which is also his self-restraint. He is afraid that his words and actions will hurt others, which was taught to him by his father. The new daimyo of the Fire Kingdom is the younger brother of the former daimyo. This younger brother is much more talented than his brother, but unfortunately, he is the second son and can only be relegated to the lower ranks, voluntarily taking care of the poor mountains and rivers. After the death of the former daimyo, due to the lack of heirs under his knee, it was his turn to inherit the daimyo's position. If the former daimyo hadn't died like this, he might never have a chance to turn over. It was precisely because Zhuo killed his brother that he was given a chance. In a sense, it was Zhuo Cheng who helped him. Between the gates and pillars sat a guest seat, with a daimyo sitting in the center and many ministers sitting next to him. The new daimyo has a handsome appearance, with a square national character face and a slender figure, which is countless times more handsome than the previous daimyo. Let me introduce myself, my name is Xuang. Since everyone is here, let's start. The daimyo showed a kind smile on his face. Just a smile would make people feel that he is a very loyal and honest person. You can rest assured that the contract signed between the Fire Kingdom and the Thousand Hands family is still in effect. I am not the kind of person to put down the burden, it's just. The daimyo hesitated as he spoke. What can I say directly, Lord Frost, said Fei Jian. You should know. I am the younger brother of the former daimyo, and if it weren't for his murder, I wouldn't have risen to power, so many people wouldn't agree with me. Daimyo paused for a moment. Those people broke away from the management of the Fire Country, joined forces with several countries, and hired the Yuzhibo clan to attack the Fire Country. What? Uchiha. Zhu Jian slammed the table and stood up. Fei Jian glared fiercely at Zhu Jian before he realized it was impolite and continued to sit and listen. At this point, Zhu Jian had no intention of listening to what the daimyo was saying, and his mind was filled with a patchy appearance. For this point, Fei Jian also feels that it is no exception. Qianshou and Yuzhibo are already enemies of the world. If you want to compete with Qianshou and look at the entire ninja realm, only Yuzhibo can do it. I called you over today to discuss the issue of funding, and I will also explain this matter to you. Daming looked at the silver hair in the doorway, lost in thought. The former daimyo was killed by a confidant around him, and that person also has hair like yours, settling Buting, and it is said that that person is still Yuzhibo. If you encounter him on the battlefield, you must do your best to kill him. After about an hour of conversation, the two sides finally finished discussing and declined daimyo's offer to keep them playing here for a few more days. I'm really sorry. There are still many unfinished affairs within the clan. My father instructed our brothers to come back as soon as possible. After all the words were said, daimyo had no choice but to agree. Is Yuzhibo? Fei Jian walked back on the way, bowing his head and pondering. He had also fought against Yuzhibo Chuanai before and knew the horror of writing will-I illusions. If developing a new technique can temporarily cut off the opponent's vision, wouldn't it be better? Thinking so, he immediately constructed a new form of ninjutsu in his mind. It should be said that this person, Kazuma, is still very talented, whether in politics or in the invention of ninjutsu. As for Zhu Jian, his mind is full of spots, and it's been 3 months since I've seen him in Nanhe River. I don't know how he's doing now. Zhu Jian pouted. In Chapter 6, it is calculated that you are listening at novel full.audio. On the day after that, Zhili never saw Sasa. Sasa was always in a daze, leaving people unaware of his whereabouts. Zhili said discontentedly, even if you're wrongly accused, you can't hide from others. What's this? During that period, with a declining population, women were treated as reproductive tools, and once they reached the appropriate age, they had to get married and have children. Zhili is a relatively special person. She was adopted by Tian Dao after her parents passed away since childhood, and has always been raised as a boy. Zhili is now an adult, and Tian Dao and Ban have arranged a marriage for her. However, her vision is too high. This is not enough, and that is not enough. So now I am in my 20s and still a lonely family. Forget it, apologize to him later. Zhili thought to himself, quickly leaving and heading home to pack up and prepare for battle. In the blink of an eye, it was afternoon and it was time to gather and set off. It was only then that Zhili hurriedly arrived. Zuo leaned against the tree trunk, dressed in a dark robe, tied with gray straps around his waist, and his scattered silver hair tied in a high ponytail shape, appearing dusty. You finally arrived, if you don't come again, we'll leave. Zuo pouted and complained. They set off long ago. Today, Zhili is also wearing a dark robe, and the attire of the Uchiha clan is similar, almost everyone is wearing a robe. The waist was tied with a white bandage, and the long hair was not tied like Zou's, but naturally draped over the shoulders. During the Warring States period, Uchiha ninjas usually wore a bandage around their waist to ensure that they had some self-rescue ability in the event of injury. Yuri glanced over the ninjas sitting on the ground and roughly counted them, only about a dozen or so. So few. So many people. Zhili couldn't help feeling surprised. Originally, there were not enough manpower, and the elite troops were all in Chuanai's Cheong's team. Zuo Bai played with his Tai Dao in a bored manner, isn't there only a few people on Ban's side? Alright, let's go. Yuri didn't listen to Suo's complaint and said to the ninja beside him. By the way, there's one more thing. Suo pointed to the ninjas behind him, give you all these ninjas, you lead the team. I'm not used to team combat. The people of the Uchiha family all have this bad habit of overestimating their own strength, extreme self-dedication, and liking to fight alone, such as Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Hirata Island did not participate in this operation, and he gave up his position as tribal leader when Ban reached adulthood. Perhaps watching Ban's rapid growth, I feel that he can strengthen Uchiha, protect his people well, and take the initiative to give way. In recent years, he has been doing some small tasks, which can be considered a return to simplicity. Zhili and Suo walked at the forefront of the team. On the way to the Yui tribe's land, you need to pass through a forest, which is here. That. Zhili patted Suo's shoulder, I'm sorry. Suo frowned slightly and said, I'm sorry for what? It's just. Zhili opened his mouth slightly, but couldn't speak at the edge of his mouth. Suo instantly understood, what's there to apologize for? There was no expression on Gu Jingwubua's face. There's no need to apologize to me for this small matter, it's okay. Zhili didn't expect Sasa to be so understanding, so he swallowed back the words he had originally prepared. Suddenly, there was an explosion in the distance, and the flames spread with thick smoke. Suo held down Zhili and said, I'll go take a look myself. You guys keep walking, I'll come back later. Then he disappeared into place. Hey! This person. Zhili sighed, rest in place, don't walk. Shoo, shoo, shoo. A series of swords shot out from deep in the forest, directly targeting the Uchiha ninja resting against the big tree. Zhili's eyes turned into crimson kaleidoscope riding wheel eyes, with inverted triangular patterns appearing on them. Wooden flowers know the flow. The sword in hand, which was about to hit, miraculously turned its direction and embedded itself in the nearby tree trunk. Is the pupil power of the kaleidoscope riding wheel eye? What a pair of good eyes. Zhili was like facing a great enemy, his eyes fixed on the dense forest. Dozens of ninjas took off their disguise and jumped out of the darkness. When Yuri saw the ethnic emblem printed on his clothes clearly, he couldn't help but be surprised. There are still so many ninjas from the thousand-armed clan, Yuri scanned the crowd with his eyes. The man led by him was wearing blue armor, a metal forehead protector, short silver hair, and a face painted with the iconic 3 layers of paint. His crimson eyes stared coldly at Jerry. I thought I could meet Quan Na, but I didn't expect, said Fei Jian with a slight regret. However, they also have good eyes. Take off her eyes and leave them for me to do the experiment, no need to keep her life. Fei Jian turned around and ordered the ninja behind him. Let's go together. Don't underestimate people. Zhili drew out his long sword, shining a cold light under the sun. On the other side, Suo also arrived at the center of the explosion just now, empty. Damn it. I was tricked. Suo said, that side of Zhili. Turning around, I was about to rush back when a figure appeared out of thin air on the tree, wearing a white robe with distinctive white eyes that were highly recognizable. The white eyes of the Hinata clan. Suo was shocked and there was still no expression on his face. The Hinata clan, with their extremely observant white eyes and renowned for their powerful physical and ninjutsu skills, has shaken the ninja world. I'm right. Suo said coldly, if you could do it yourself, it would make me look up to you. Hinata's current clan leader. Hinata Rikaku. It seems that Yuzhibo's intelligence is very extensive, even I know, Richiyo smiled calmly, but what's the use of knowing? Richiyo's smile gradually disappeared and his eyes became cold. Since you're here, stay here forever. With a big wave of his hand, dozens of Hinata ninjas surrounded Satoru. The original plan was to intercept Uchiha, but Hinata had only deployed so many troops, and even the clan leader had arrived. Now it seems that there is no need for this. The Hinata clan is skilled in physical arts, with white eyes having several times stronger insight and observation ability than the Sharingan. They can clearly see the flow of chakras within the human body, and can be judged as dead when approached by Hinata ninjas. The combination of virtual and real elements in Bagua Palm, true and false, false and true, is even more difficult to defend against. Bagua Palm, not just you. Zwa jokingly said, facing the charging Hinata ninja. He remained calm and skillfully resisted the fierce palm strike. He turned his palms up, left and right, and forced his opponent to defend. As the middle road opened wide, he used a move to escape and transform shadows, targeting his lower abdomen and cutting off the ninja's chakra meridian. Stumbling back a few steps, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Hinata's face became even colder. Bagua Palm is a body technique that Hinata is secretive about, not to mention acupoints and cutting off the chakra meridians on the opposite side. It must have undergone long-term learning and training. It seems that Hinata has an inner ghost. Hinata calculated in his heart, and when he went back, he would investigate the clan members, bound to find the inner ghost. At the moment when Hinata was stunned, Sasa had already dealt with dozens of Hinata ninjas, quickly retreated, and drew his sword. With a flash of cold light, blood gushed out, and tiny bloodstains splattered on Zo-Na's fair face. After a while, all the Hinata ninjas were solved, leaving only Hinata and Sasa, who were facing each other across the air. Zwo wiped the blood-covered blade on the body next to him, then retracted the blade and sheathed it. I don't know how to use ninja to fight you, it's a fair showdown, right? Zwo Dan's hand formed a seal of opposition, and Hinata responded in the same way. In just a blink of an eye, Zwo arrived in front of Richie and fiercely kicked him on the head. So fast. Sun Meteor saw this and bent his arm to block the blow, but his body was shaken away by this powerful force. Without giving Rikii reaction time, Tsukuebu stepped close to him and kicked him head-on, barely avoiding Rikii. Following closely is the gossip chain of leg bangs. Fly a few meters sideways. How could it be? I can't even see his movements clearly with my naked eyes. Richio was secretly surprised. Sassoon followed and swept his legs down the road. Richie took off and dodged, grabbing Sassoon's arm and using his elbow to push him out. Not bad. I thought you only had this level. Zwo didn't hesitate to praise Richie. The Sun Meteor quickly caught up, and the whirlwind palm came to kill its neck. With one hand to protect the neck and the other hand to strike directly at the Sun Meteor gate. The fist with a sharp wind sound was already in front of me, even producing a sonic boom. Richie turned around and used his strength to turn it around. He went around behind Zwo's back and hooked his calf onto Zwo's, suddenly exerting force. Zwo was caught off guard by this move and lost his balance. However, Zwo was not a foodie and rolled 180 degrees in the air. After adjusting his balance, he flipped over and drilled his fist straight into the middle of the Sun Meteor. Sun Meteor was unprepared and looked at the fist in front of him, his eyes and veins bulging. Return to heaven. The rapidly moving blue chakra bounced Zo's fist open, forming an indestructible defense outside. Is it the secret technique of the Hinata family? Said Zwo secretly. The battle has just begun. Ri Xing said calmly. Great. Zwo Huan said with anticipation, it's been a long time since I've met an opponent like you. Come on, let me see your strength. With a good posture, he is truly in the three-body pose of Xingyi Fist. Sun Meteor uses the 8 trigrams palm to confront the enemy, and the battle between the strong depends on who takes the lead. After all, Zwo couldn't hold his breath and quickly ran forward to take the lead. Zwo's Xingyi Fist is fierce and fierce, with each move being a killing move. Ri Xie, who had previously hit a few moves, has a deep understanding of it. Now that he has learned how to be smart, he uses defense as an attack, but this way, he cannot fully utilize the advantages of Bagua Palm. Has no one taught you that Bagua Palm is about quick attack? Zhou said as he punched. Bagua Palm is black, strong in attacking from the side door, using speed to make the opponent tired of defense, and then using acupoints and piercing palms to end the opponent. It seems that no one has really taught you, there are really many loopholes. The left hand clenched its fist to break through the defense, while the Sun Meteor changed hands to resist, unaware that the right hand had quietly clenched. A half-step punch burst out from the waist, shattering the liver with one punch. Sun Meteor retreated in succession, spitting out a mouthful of blood, covering his liver and panting heavily. How despicable. Ri Chiu reluctantly uttered 4 words, covering his waist and couldn't help but vomit blood. Zhou walked slowly to Sun Meteor and squatted down, jokingly laughing, this is each other. On the battlefield, you don't need other people to use hidden weapons, and you can't say that others are despicable. Go to hell. Punched out and hit Zhou Mianman directly. That's it. Zhou grabbed the incoming punch with his left hand, lightly turning his wrist and lifting his right hand. With a dull sound of click, the elbow joint was misaligned, and the piercing pain in his arm made Ri Xia instinctively stop. Zhou Xiangqian, with 2 hands in a peach shape, perfectly supporting Ryu's chin. The bone at the neck was completely broken, and Sun Meteor was completely defeated by this move. He flew straight back and crashed into the rock, without any movement. He sniffed and was already dead. What a pity. Zhou looked at Rikaku's body and sighed deeply. The fall of the head of the Rikaku clan would inevitably affect the pattern of the ninja realm, but he could only do so now. The head of the Hinata family must have more than just these skills, but when encountering a master of Bagua Palm and Xingyi Fist, he doesn't play fancy tricks. Each move is a killing move, and just taking one move is enough to cause serious injuries, let alone Xingyi Fist's White Ape Peach. I don't know what's going on in Zhili either. Zhou signed with one hand. The technique of instant body turned into a remnant and disappeared in place. Chapter 7. You will not die here. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhili was half kneeling on the ground, with dozens of corpses lying haphazardly beside him, including those of Yuzhibo and Qianshou. A splash of blood gushed from the corner of his mouth, and his dark robe had already been stained with blood, whether it was someone else's blood or his own. There are scars of varying depths on the abdomen and back, and a deep incision has been made in the middle of the back, causing the flesh to turn out and appear ferocious. Continuously using ninjutsu combined with injuries on his body, he was already at the end of his strength. He inserted his knife into the ground, barely maintaining a semi-kneeling posture, and looked up at the distant forest. Fortunately, they have already broken through, and it would be a good outcome if I were the only one to die. Thinking this, the corner of my mouth lifted and a bitter smile sounded. 1,000 hands raised a grand sword, its blade shining brightly in the sunlight. Everything is over. Zhili looked at the long sword within reach and slowly closed his eyes. In these few seconds, she thought of many things. She thought of Ban, Xiong, Quana, Huahe. Many people, thinking of how sad they would be after their death. Zhili is not willing to accept it. He is only 19 years old and has not yet met someone who makes him fall in love with him. He has not married yet and has not watched his life continue. I don't know why, but at this moment, Zhili actually thought of that man, the man with silver hair dancing. Zhili gently shook his head, even with so much unwillingness, the outcome was already predetermined. Zhou. He probably died too. Zhili thought to herself that she suddenly wished he hadn't died and could live on her behalf. Go to hell. The sound of metal collision came from mid-air, and Tai Dao did not fall as expected, but was blocked. The 2 sword eyebrows locked tightly in the doorway, and he couldn't help but be surprised. When did the Uchiha clan have such a person who survived the interception of more than 10 Hinata ninjas? With a muffled sound, the door flew backwards, coughing up a mouthful of blood, rolling on the ground a few times, and inserting the knife into the ground to maintain balance. Zhili suddenly opened his eyes, and a touch of silver white caught his eye. "It's too early to give up now, Mr. Zhili." A teasing voice came, and Zhou slowly turned his head with a faint smile on his face. "The next battle is up to me. Please rest slowly beside me." Zhuo's voice seemed to calm people's hearts, with unquestionable conviction and confidence, making Zhili feel relieved. "Wrap the knife in its sheath, keep your eyes tightly closed, and the thick eyelashes cast a shadow over your eyes." The thousand-handed ninja was right in front of me, the Tai Dao unsheathed and broke through the air. Tai Dao. One flash of the dragon. The sharp sword energy flashed past, instantly cutting the several ninjas charging ahead in half. Some people tried to block it with a knife grid, but the knife and the person broke together. With 1,000 hands, he rushed forward with a knife, but within a few moves, he was taken off his weapon by Sui and kicked to the side. "You guy!" Fei Jian angrily said, his hand stamping. "Fantasy. The art of darkness." Sui's eyes were filled with darkness, losing his sense of smell and perception, and he could only hear sounds from outside. Zhou is truly a seasoned person who instantly adjusts his state, calms his inner self, and is fully focused on perceiving the sounds outside. The sound of Tai Dao breaking through the air came, and Zhou relied on his muscle memory to dodge. He turned around and squatted down to dodge another blow. On the left. On the right. I judged the attack trend several times in a row based on my voice. The sound of Tai Dao sweeping horizontally came, and Zhou turned around to dodge. "It's now." His arm exerted force, and a horizontal punch forced him to retreat from the door, leaving a single hand imprint. Illusion technique. Solution. The light in front of me regained, and Qianqiu Zhang retreated back to Qianqiu's army. That's a great move. If you change people, you might really fall into your hands. But that's it. Make a noon print on both hands. Fire escape, extinguish the great fire. Orange-yellow high temperature flames erupted, forming a sea of fire, even larger than a spot. Flames engulfed the sky and earth, and everywhere they passed was a sheet of coke. "Hurry up, use water to escape." Kazuma shouted loudly to the ninja behind him, his hand prints flying wildly. Water escape. Water slug bullet technique. A huge water tap appeared out of thin air on the flat ground, but it seemed a bit powerless in the face of Zhuo's massive fire extinguishing. The ninjas behind also reacted and tried to escape with water. The scale of the water escape used by dozens of ninjas is extremely large, even surpassing the water cannon between 1,000 hands. Quantitative change leads to qualitative change. If dozens of ninjas simultaneously release a type of ninjutsu, its power can be on par with that of shadow-level powerhouses, except between Uchiha and Chiba, not to mention the water escape ninjutsu launched by dozens of ninjas simultaneously. However, with such a large scale of ninjutsu, it is only possible to barely compete with Sasa's fire escape, which shows that Sasa's strength even surpasses that of present-day Ban and Zhujian. What a terrifying chakra this is! Qian Shaosheng sighed, even his elder brother Qian Shizu may not have such a huge chakra. When did such a genius appear in the Yuzhibo family? Water and fire blend, a large amount of water evaporates, and mist instantly envelopes the battlefield. Smoke shrouds, and visibility is extremely low in the thick fog, even a few meters ahead cannot be seen, but the Sharingan of Zhuo's kaleidoscope is not affected. Zhuo shuttled through the smoke, his sword cutting through the throats of one person after another. The sword in his hand turned into a sickle of death, mercilessly harvesting life, and screams kept coming and going. "Use the wind to escape, hurry up." Someone shouted in the smoke, but unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, he was wiped off his neck. Between 1,000 hands, a seal is formed with both hands, and the seal of Feng Dun is formed. Don't forget, Qianshaoshang is a ninja with all 7 chakra attributes, including wind, fire, thunder, earth, water, yin, and yang. He is only proficient in water escape. As for why he is proficient in water escape, it is mainly because the people of the Yuzhibo clan are proficient in fire escape. Feng done, once the typhoon passes. The mist was instantly blown away, and the battlefield returned to its original appearance, with just over a dozen more corpses. Seeing the mist dissipate, Sua no longer loved to fight and retreated to Zhili's side. "How are you, can you still hold on?" Sua observed the situation on the field and asked Zhili. Zhili's face was as pale as paper, and dark red blood kept gushing out, dyeing the day's robe even redder. "I'm fine." Zhili's voice was trembling. "You said it's okay." Just hold on, I'll end the battle right away," Sua said, waving his sword and charging forward. No one survived in the area he passed by, and the momentum was unstoppable. How could it be? How could it be so strong? "We can't let him go out alive," said the 1,000-handed door, gritting his teeth. "Even if you die in battle here, you have to hold him back." Turning his gaze towards Yuri in the distance, he gave a glance to the nearby ninja, who instantly understood. The next second, he instantly disappeared in place and appeared behind Yuri. The shining sword swung down, but Zhili was completely unaware. Suoda was shocked and said, "Damn it, I didn't expect. There's nothing I can do." The blue chakra collective appeared, transformed into an arm, and caught the ninja from afar, instantly squeezing and exploding, with flesh and blood flying everywhere. "This is," exclaimed Qianshou, "such a dense chakra gathering." Qianshou Fei remembered the text he had seen from the historical records of the Qianshou family before. He was still young at the time, just curious. Sneaking into the room between his father and Buddha, he flipped over to the side that recorded the Sharingan of Uchiha's Kaleidoscope. There were only a few words on it. "Whoever opens the Sharingan of the Kaleidoscope will awaken a powerful force that comes with the risk of blindness." The Uchiha clan named it Susanangu, which can even be countered by a tail beast. Susanengu, Mu Dun, and tailed beast are all ethereal things that only exist in legends and no one will believe them at all. I thought it was just a legend, but I didn't expect it to be true and have appeared. The blue half-body giant stood tall, draped in light armor, burning with blazing flames. Suoyi's move is to use the second form of Suanenghu, completely disregarding the depletion of pupil power. The 1,000-armed ninja was frightened by something he had never seen before. His sword fell to the ground, his legs became weak, and beads of sweat as big as beans rolled down. Suanenghu. Sword of 10 directions. The blue giant's hand transformed into a blue giant sword. With just one strike, the earth shattered, sand and rocks flew, and wherever the sword passed, there were even varying degrees of spatial vortices. "Ah! Ah!" Screams of agony echoed on the battlefield. "Damn it!" The 1,000-handed gates quickly sealed. Water escape. The art of water bullet. Lei Dun, Lei Zhu. The combination of ninjutsu water and thunder came straight from the half-body of Susa, and Susa was able to transform into a shield in his hand. Susanenhu Bagua Mirror. The combination of ninjutsu in Qianshou Fei hit it, and surprisingly, there were some cracks. "Look! That thing can be broken," exclaimed one after another in the crowd, as the 1,000-armed ninjas realized that Susanenhu was not invincible, and one by one they were like giving chicken blood, one ninjutsu after another in their hands. Even Susanenhu couldn't withstand such an attack, and the cracks on the gossip mirror in his hand gradually increased. Originally only a small part, it now spread to the entire mirror. Put in more effort. It's about to break through. After enduring waves of attacks from ninjas, the gossip mirror reached its limit and suddenly shattered. Success! The 1,000-armed ninja cheered. How could Suso be so easily defeated? Fei Jian was skeptical. That's a power that only exists in legends. How could No, no. Looking towards Sasa, who was in the Susanenghu, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, as if everything was expected. At a glance, several blue and white butterflies flew towards the crowd, and the 1,000-armed ninja was in a state of cheering, completely unaware of those butterflies. One of the butterflies flapped its wings and landed on the shoulder of a 1,000-handed ninja. An ominous premonition appeared in Fei Jian's heart and he shouted loudly to the ninjas, "Quickly disperse. Stay away from that butterfly." The cheers of the crowd and the continuous attacks of detonating cymbals masked the sound in the room. It's too late. Suo slowly lifted his left hand, his expression on the face could no longer be hidden. This smile looked at the chilly door and lightly tapped his fingers. Explosions could be heard from the crowd, with flames soaring into the sky and thick smoke billowing. The aftermath of the explosion affected several miles around. 1,000 hands were blown away by the shock wave, fell to the ground, hit their heads against the rock, and passed out. Before he fainted, he vaguely heard a few words. "1,000-handed, this is what you brought for yourself. Next time you encounter it on the battlefield, I won't show mercy." Chapter 8. Rainy and Cloudy Days. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The sky is covered with dark clouds and thunder is heard in the distance. It is estimated that rainstorm will come soon. Damn weather. Zhou Yin cursed, carrying Zhili, who was seriously injured and unconscious, on his back. We can only find a place nearby to take shelter from the rain. I circled around but couldn't find any shelter from the rain. The heavy rain arrived as scheduled, weddings was clothes and Zhili's as well. She will catch a cold if it goes on like this. Zhou anxiously said, already seriously injured and suffering from a cold. If not treated in time, she will die. There's nothing we can do. The blue chakra giant hand emerged, covering Zhili and Zhou below. Zhou Jiangji placed it on the rock, tidied up the nearby firewood, and a small flame appeared at his fingertips, igniting the wood. By the time Sasa finished everything, Yuri had already woken up and was curiously caressing the blue chakra exoskeleton. "You're awake." Zhou smiled at Zhili. This face looks serious and rigid when not smiling, but Zhou also likes to smile. Almost every time I see him, he has a smile on his face, making Zhou appear gentle, affectionate, and understanding. Zhili was lost in thought and suddenly felt a piercing pain in his back, causing him to grit his teeth in pain. "Don't move." Zhou stopped Zhili's attempt to get up and turned him to his side. He saw that the fierce wound on his back had already suppurated, with yellow pus continuously flowing out. "That." Zhou coughed lightly, seeming somewhat embarrassed. "Take off your clothes." "Ha!" Zhili said in confusion. "What are you doing?" "The wound on your back has suppurated and requires emergency treatment." "I can do some medical ninjutsu," said Zhou Bai, a blush appearing on her face. Zhili looked at Zhou like this and suddenly wanted to tease him. "I'm weak, help me take it off." "This." Zhou's face turned white and red and white. "Bite your lips tightly, try not to touch the wound on Zhili, and peel off Zhili's robe." Zhili's perfect figure is displayed, with a waist that is not very thin, but also not thick. The skin is smooth like silk, and the chest is bound with bandages, but the scale can still be seen. Take a deep breath, calm your mood, and begin treatment. The green chakra wrapped around the palm, and the wound healed instantly when the palm touched it. "I didn't expect you to be a medical ninja." "I only know a little, not proficient." The movements on my hands kept moving. Medical ninjas were very scarce during the Warring States period, and many ninjas died every day due to lack of timely treatment. Even with treatment, most medical ninjas did not have as advanced medical skills as Zhou, and they may not be able to survive. The rain has long stopped, and the air in the mountains is exceptionally fresh. 2 hours of continuous treatment left Zhou exhausted, leaning against the wall with his eyes slightly closed. The slender eyelashes trembled, casting shadows around the eye sockets. Yuzhi moved a little and surprisingly, all the injuries on his back have healed, but the other small wounds have not been treated yet. Thank you. My eyelids twitched slightly, but I didn't open them. No need to thank you. Yuzhi saw that Suo was so tired, so he no longer disturbed him. He put on his clothes and wanted to bandage the wound, but the bandage on his waist had already been stained red with blood and could no longer be used. Yuzhi looked at Suo's waist, which was still wrapped in bandages, so he limped over to his side and sat down against the wall. Suo's breathing was calm and gentle. Yuzhi poked Suo with his finger and found that he was already tired and asleep, so he started doing it himself. Put Suo Ping on the ground and reach out to relieve the bandage on his waist. With a stumble under his feet, he didn't stand firm and threw himself into Suo's arms. Suo Meng opened his eyes and saw Yuzhi lying on top of him. Ah! Yuzhi scratched his head to conceal his embarrassment, looked up, and happened to meet Suo's gaze. The two of them stared big and small, and the air between them seemed to freeze. Yuzhi only realized that he had never looked at Suo carefully before, and now he has found that he is indeed quite good looking. Her fair face was stained with a little dust and blood, appearing less gentle and affectionate, but rather more masculine. The light gray eyes make Suo look even more unique. Although he is light in color, he doesn't seem out of place, complementing Suo's silver hair. No wonder the Uchiha clan is rich in beautiful men, who can't help but feel confused. Cough, cough. Suo was a bit uncomfortable staring at him like this, and he coughed lightly to divert his attention. Yuzhi also felt that it was a bit impolite and got up. Why? Yuzhi pointed to the bandage around his waist. Take this. Suo sighed and said, I won't say this earlier. Remove the bandage and throw it to Yuzhi. After all this fuss, Suo couldn't sleep anymore. Why not just stand by and watch Yuzhi treat the wound? Wait until Yuzhi has treated all his wounds, big and small, and then slowly get up. It's getting late now, find a place to spend the night. She patted the dust off her clothes and said to Yuzhi. Yuzhi looked up at the sky and it was indeed dark. Let's go. Under the persistent search of Yuzhi and Sasa, a small cave was finally found. Yuzhi pursed his lips and complained in dissatisfaction. Come on, some living would be great. This is in the wilderness. He pointed to the entrance of the mountain, and living inside is better than sleeping in the forest. Suo Fu Yuzhi sat against the inner wall of the cave. You sit down first, I'll find some firewood to come over. Yuzhi said, wrapping his clothes tightly around him. It's late autumn now, and the weather is cold. Yuzhi was already injured, but now it's getting even colder. Upon seeing Yuzhi like this, Suo hesitated for a moment, took off his robe, and draped it over Yuzhi's shoulder. Yuzhi looked up at Suo. Aren't you cold? Not cold. It's impossible to say it's not cold, as Zori is only wearing a thin white bodysuit. I'm fine. Suo turned to Yuzhi, showing a faint smile, with a smile in his eyes and eyebrows. Yuzhi couldn't say anything more, he just wrapped his robe tightly. Yuzhi sniffed the robe with his nose, still carrying a hint of mint fragrance. In no time, Suo came back, holding a pile of firewood. A small flame appeared at his fingertips, and Chakra, who had the attribute of fire, instantly lit the firewood. Yuzhi felt much warmer and the two of them sat by the campfire. The flickering flames reflected on Suo's face, and Suo stared blankly at the flickering flames, unsure of what he was thinking. Yuzhi pushed and asked curiously. What are you thinking? Suo opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he didn't say it. I didn't think much. Shoo. Yuzhi rolled his eyes, if you don't want to say anything, just say it. Suo turned his head to look at Yuzhi. Yuzhi's face was slightly red, wrapped in a dark robe, with some blood stains on his fair face. He had short bangs on his forehead, and his purple long hair spread freely behind his head. Suddenly, he reached out his hand and placed it on Zhili's forehead. The scorching temperature came from the palm of my hand, so I quickly withdrew it. You have a fever. As expected. What should we do then? Sui Chang sighed and said, lean on me. Zhili shifted his body and leaned against Sasanoda's chest. Sui is using his chakra to transfer heat to Zhili, but of course, it's impossible to talk to Zhili about this. Zhili only felt warm and comfortable, and soon fell asleep with his support. For some reason, Zhili always let go of her guard in front of Sui. She could feel an indescribable emotion slowly taking root and sprouting in her heart. Sui's body was stiff and he didn't dare to move his body. It seemed that he wasn't accustomed to such physical contact, but he continued to transmit heat. One night passed. Chapter 9. Rescued. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the early morning, the mountains were quiet and silent, with only a few occasional bird calls coming from afar. Zhili rubbed his sleepy eyes, and as soon as he opened them, he saw Sui's handsome face, but with thick black eye bags. Overall he was still handsome. Good morning. Yuri's mouth curved upwards, revealing a sweet smile. Morning, Sui replied weakly. Zhili suddenly realized something was wrong. Although he had initially slept on Sui's chest, why is he now sleeping on his thighs? She suddenly remembered the intimate actions of last night, and her face blushed slightly. That. Zhili looked apologetically at Sui. Last night. Thank you. Sui turned his head and looked towards the distant mountains. No need to thank you. Sui's face suddenly showed a sullen expression, and his cheeks showed a faint pink color. You can't get up. Zhili realized that he had been lying on Sasa's thigh all along, and quickly got up, looking at Sasa apologetically. With his hand supporting the wall, his face suddenly turned even redder, and his words were somewhat mournful. My legs are numb, I can't get up. The autumn mountains are filled with mist, combined with yesterday's rain, making it seem like a fairyland from afar. Sui carried Zhili on his back and rushed towards the southern Kagawa tribe of Uchiha. Originally, it only took 2 days to travel, as I was carrying Zhili on my back. After 2 days, I only walked halfway. Brother Sui. Sister Zhili. The valley echoed with shouts. Upon hearing this, Zhili could tell whose voice it was and was overjoyed. It's Quan Na, he's here to find us both. Hey. Kwana, here you are. Zhili was placed on a stretcher, and even though the main wound has been treated, it is still necessary to seek professional treatment to avoid any sequelae from the injury. Quan Na still loves to cry, even as a young adult of 17 or 18 years old, her face is still childish, with a little bit of baby fat on it. His big black grape-like eyes were filled with tears. Quan Na held Sui's arm and cried uncontrollably. Nose and tears flow together. Tears and nasal mucus wiped across the entire sleeve. Brother Sui. I almost thought you couldn't come back. If you can't come back, what should I do? Sasa remained speechless for a moment. Can't this kid just hope to order himself? Is it better to die in front of him? Besides, he was not originally included in the original work. Didn't Quan Na and Ban still follow the set plot? Almost everything during the Warring States period was briefly mentioned, and from beginning to end, Zhili only had one introduction. The founder of Izanami. Even Kwana serves as a pedal for opening the Eternal Kaleidoscope's Sharingan. No, it's a pedal for the Sharingan. There is not too much detail portrayal or description. This world is too distant and unfamiliar to the familiar world of Hokage among movie fans. Cough. Sui lightly coughed twice and touched Quan Na's head, with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. If it comes to injuries, Zhili should be more severely injured than me. Chuan-I just turned his head and saw that the large bloodstains on Zhili's robe had dried up and solidified into blood clots. Sui is much cleaner, even if there are blood stains, it is someone else's blood splattered on him. Compared to the damage suffered by Zhili, speaking of which, Ban and Quana's kaleidoscope have awakened, and it will be about 3 or 4 years before Quana is seriously injured by Qian Shufiai. So Ban's eternal kaleidoscope will also take 3 or 4 years to open its eyes, which is still too slow. Sasa's smile narrowed and his expression gradually became cold. Quan Na, I won't let you die. There must be a better solution. I will. His fist clenched, his veins bulging on the back of his hand. I hope the world I have created has no wars or regrets, only peace and beauty. If someone has to bear the heavy darkness, I don't mind it being me. The sunlight hit Zou's face, and due to the obstruction of light, only half of his face could be seen clearly. Half of his face was in the light, and the other half was in the darkness. I am such a person, perhaps, this is my destiny. Zhuo let out a bitter smile, quickly following Quan Na's footsteps and restoring his usual gentle and smiling Zhuo. Ban's side was not very smooth either, and he encountered the 1,000-armed ninja led by Qianqiu Zhujian. In this battle, Ban awakened Su Sanenghu, while Zhujian unlocked the power of Mu Dun. The two sides were evenly matched, and neither side was able to take advantage. Both retreated. Fortunately, Quana and Xiong have grown up and completed their mission excellently. They attacked the territory of the Feathercoat clan, causing heavy losses to Feathercoat and temporarily unable to pose a strong threat to Uchiha. The 3 knocking sounds of dong, dong, dong rang out on the door. Please come in. Ban said, the candlelight flickering, and the dim yellow light cast a shadow under Ban's thick eyelashes. His long hair covered half of his face, making it impossible to see through his thoughts. With one hand supporting his face, the table was piled up with ancient documents and books of the Uchiha clan from ancient times to the present. Zhuo gently pushed the door in. Zhuo was wearing a white robe, his silver hair was not taken care of, and it was scattered behind his head. He pulled a cushion in the corner and sat down opposite Ban. What's wrong, what are you doing? Ban's eyes were tinged with blood, and there were faint black bags under his eyes, indicating that he had not rested well for a long time. Ban did not stop his movements and gently rubbed his temples with his right index finger. I have searched for many historical records of the Uchiha clan, but I have not found any records of the Kaleidoscope Sharingan power, as if it appeared out of thin air. Do you really want to know? Zhuo asked. Of course. Humph. Zhuo lightly snorted and began the story. After being strongly stimulated by mental stimulation, the brain of Uchiha people produces a unique chakra that directly affects the eyes, causing significant changes and greatly enhancing their observation and insight. They can even release illusions through their eyes, which is Uchiha's Sharingan. The Sharingan will level up with the emotional fluctuations of the eye-opener, and its highest level is the Kaleidoscope Sharingan. The Kaleidoscope Sharingan possesses unparalleled insight and powerful illusions, as well as its own exclusive pupil power. Depending on the viewer's state of mind at the time, the awakened abilities vary greatly. There are differences in the stripes of the writing will eye, which can be divided into straight stripes and curved stripes. The straight stripes of the writing will eye can bring powerful physical skills and speed gains to the eye-opener, and the awakened ability is also related to destruction. Chu Ba's writing will eye stripes are curved in shape, similar to a dart in wielding a sword. He is skilled in illusions and greatly enhances them. His awakened abilities are related to illusions. Our kaleidoscope, both of us are straight and written will eyes. Ban's eyes were sharp, and he immediately asked a question. Is what I have awakened a kind of ability to write will eyes in a kaleidoscope? No, no, no. Zhuo shook his head and denied. The Kaleidoscope Sharingan is naturally accompanied by this power and will open after a certain period of time, ranging from a few days to several decades. It depends on whether the user deliberately awakens this power. This is the third power of the Kaleidoscope writing will eye. Susanoo. Chapter 10. The cost of Kaleidoscope writing will eyes. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The so-called Uchiha clan is a loving clan and also a clan bound by love. People only know the love of Uchiha, but ignore the love of Uchiha clan. If Yuzhibo loses this love, he will hate because of love. The deeper the love, the deeper the hatred. Relatively speaking, people with kaleidoscope will eyes are more likely to fall into hatred. The cost of opening the kaleidoscope to write the wheel I believe you and I both know. That is the death of our loved ones. Ban, you're so lucky. You haven't experienced those things. The two fell into silence. Outside the window, it was already dark at some point, shrouded in darkness like an invisible hand. The cost of writing a wheel I in a kaleidoscope goes far beyond this. Ban slowly lifted his head and met Yuzo's gaze. What else is the cost? If you really want to say it, where do you start? Suo turned his head and looked out at the darkness outside the window. It was destined to be a long night. Let's start from there. After telling the story of Indra, the Assistant General Huiji, the 6 immortals, and Azura frowned. What does this have to do with the cost of a kaleidoscope? Don't worry, said Suo Xian with a smile. Senji Qianshou inherited the powerful physical strength of the 6 immortals, giving the Qianshou clan a massive chakra and strong vitality. Yuzhibo inherits the 6 immortals' pupil technique and powerful spiritual power. When the Sharingan of the Yuzhibo clan opens its eyes, its spiritual energy will multiply exponentially, producing antibodies against illusions. But Suo changed his tone. If the owner of the Sharingan does not have strong physical fitness to match their spiritual strength, then every time they use the Sharingan, their spirit will become more radical, extreme, and stubborn, giving rise to hatred. These are all secondary. We are both owners of the Kaleidoscope Sharingan, and I believe that each use brings you a considerable cost. Ban remained noncommittal and silent. The Kaleidoscope Sharingan was once cursed, and those who possess it will eventually become blind. When I first used the kaleidoscope, I just kept crying after using it, rested for a few days, and the side effects completely disappeared. Later on, when used for a long time, dynamic vision became blurry. It was used more frequently in battles, and sometimes even shed blood and tears after use. In the end, the pupil power was exhausted and the kaleidoscope wheel eye became blind. This process can take at most 10 years, or at least 10 days. Even with strong physical strength, one will eventually go blind, and there is only one way to solve it. What's the cost? His voice became hoarse at some point, and his voice startled Ban himself. The inner desire for power is fully revealed. This method is the true way to ensure that the Kaleidoscope Sharingan will never go blind and obtain the first pair of eternal Kaleidoscope Sharingan in Uchiha's history. That's transplant your own close relative's kaleidoscope writing wheel eyes. Ban was stunned, his hot heart was poured with a basin of cold water, and his thirst for power instantly disappeared without a trace. Kwana and Cheong are his closest and most intimate people, and no matter what, he will spare his life to protect them. Suo stood up, the Sharingan of the kaleidoscope opened, and a 5-pointed star pattern appeared in his eyes. For thousands of years, countless Uchiha people have been following suit, willing to sacrifice their fathers and sons' swords in fraternal violence. No one has ever opened these eyes. The curse of writing the wheel I in a kaleidoscope does not mean that one will eventually become blind. This is the true curse of the kaleidoscope writing wheel I. Ban looked up and looked behind him. A red moon rose in the sky, and wherever the moonlight passed, there were mountains of corpses and blood. After finishing speaking, the two of them sat in silence, facing each other. Ban, tell me, do you still want this power now? Suo said coldly. Ban remained silent, his long hair covering half of his face, and his expression was cold. Looking up at Xiangzhua, who was looking out the window, his gray eyes were filled with sadness, but his expression remained calm. Suo noticed Ban's gaze and turned his head. The sadness had already disappeared, and he replied to his usual warm and jade-like appearance. By the way, show me the scroll in your hand. Zui took the scroll from Ban's hand, and at the beginning, he looked at it very familiar, feeling like he had seen it somewhere. This scroll has a light green outer shell and is also locked on the outside. Looking at the scroll, Zui's face was strange, his eyebrows furrowed, and his eyes narrowed slightly. No, according to this time period. No. What's wrong? Ban leaned over. Can you help me get the locked scroll too? Zui pointed to the top scroll above the bookshelf. Do as you please. Zui took the scroll and lightly twisted it, causing the locking buckle to break. The scroll was unfolded, with words densely written inside, almost filling the entire scroll. In order to speed up the reading process, Zui even opened the writing will I. Hey, there's no need to be in such a hurry. Ignoring Ban's words, Zui lowered his head and flipped through the scroll. Has this world changed? Zui's palms were sweating profusely, and there was also cold sweat sliding out of his forehead. This world has changed because of my arrival. Humph, but isn't the changed world more challenging? Hey. Are you okay? Ban Shui pushed thoughtfully. A smile climbed up from the corner of his mouth and patted his shoulder. It's okay. It's just that you may not be able to sleep at night. What's so urgent? Ban restrained his smile and said seriously. Follow me to find someone. Zui said. The smile became increasingly cold, with a hint of frost around the corners of the eyes. The humanoid weapon of Uchiha during the Warring States period. Uchiha. Nameless.